Good morning and welcome to Sunday. This video is taking a little bit longer than most of my videos, to be fair, mostly because one, my beautiful niece got up and so I didn't manage to get the video done before then, and I love her dearly, so we've had to be a princess. We've watched 5 million cartoons so far. She spilt tea everywhere, hasn't she, Jay? And my poor niece is running around trying to let her auntie do these videos with this child that just doesn't care, okay? And that's okay, because that's life. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk about... She's basically going, ta-da! So she's got some building blocks and she's building some stuff. 5 stages of grief. What? Okay, so 5 stages of grief was created or popularized, let's say, by a psychiatrist by the name of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in 1969 when she published a book. The actual stages is probably a hybrid off the back of other theorists that have come up with some stuff, and there was some academic criticism around there not being enough empirical evidence. However, from 1969 to 2020, it's still probably the most commonly used and the one that helps people to understand what grief is. So the 5 stages are: stage number 1, denial. I'm going to add in shock. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did add in 2 more stages later on and said that it wasn't a linear process. Talk about it in a minute. Stage number 2 is anger. Stage number 3 is bargaining. 4 is depression, and 5 is acceptance. So those are the 5 stages of grief. However, even though it was written as a linear model, it's quite likely that you're not going to go through the process as a linear process. In fact, many of you might have gone straight to depression. Some of you might have just stayed in the angry space. Some of you might have been bargaining. Now, bargaining, denial, anger, depression, acceptance, those are all things you can very easily understand. Bargaining, though, bargaining is actually us bargaining with a higher power, with the Lord, with ourselves, to try and make some semblance of understanding around what we're going through. So just understand that bargaining isn't you bargaining with another entity. It's often you bargaining with yourself to try and cope with what's going on. You might say things like, oh, this was meant to be. You know, look at the good that's going to come off the back of COVID-19 for the earth. Maybe this is a message to say that we haven't been doing things right. So all of those things are embedded into that part of the stage. Now, I did mention about it being a linear process, okay? And that actually Kubler-Ross... Hey. Oh, that is amazing. Well done. She made a line. So what you might find is that you don't just go through the process as a linear process. You might jump from one to the other, and that's okay. So, and Kubler-Ross did mention that she wished that she hadn't written it in a linear format, but actually, like any model, and when we think of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that currently is being completely torn to shreds by academics, by the academic world. Stephen Cummings, for example, is saying, hey, listen, that was never meant to be a pyramid. Actually, he said that lives like this. And I think that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross thought the same with the 5 stages of grief. But for us out there, what does that mean? You know, what does that mean for us? It just means that if you're feeling angry, you know that it's okay. If you're feeling sad, just know that that's the step before acceptance. Depression is actually you saying, oh, this is happening. It's a little bit of a helplessness, but it is definitely the stage before acceptance, okay? So most of us will fall into that pit at some point. Now, what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is give you a little bit of information about that. Boom, there's your 5 stages of grief. Here's a drill that you can do to understand what you're grieving. Because even though the 5 stages of grief, that's very interesting, it's not helpful if you don't know what you're grieving. Okay? And you might find that what you're grieving is something that you never thought you were grieving. Like, for example, if I couldn't talk to you guys like this, I would grieve human contact. I would grieve the opportunity to connect. I would grieve the lack of stimulus in terms of a conversation. I would grieve that. So we need to understand what that is. So here's my little drill for you. If you can be bothered and if you'd like to, please partake in this. So write a list down. Write a list down of everything that you can no longer do. Okay? a list of everything. Then put it into categories. Okay. The reason why we chunk it into categories is so that we can create pieces of information that we can deal with. Okay. So it might mean that socialization, it might mean entertainment, it might mean food. You can't have all the different wonderful foods that you've had in the past. You've got to be a little bit more thoughtful in that space. You can't whip to McDonald's. I know my children will be missing that. In fact, I think my kid said that to me the other day. Man, I miss McDonald's. So chunk it into these categories. Then ask 3 questions. Question number 1, is it something that I cannot replace? Okay, and you cannot replace, for example, going to a cafe and having a cup of tea with a friend. You can't do that. Okay. Is it something that I can, question number 2, is it something I can replace, but I have to change or adapt it? All right, so do I have to adapt it? And an example of that would be meetings. Now we have meetings online, so we have Zoom meetings instead of having face-to-face meetings. All right. Is it something that doesn't need to be replaced because it hasn't changed, despite the fact I'm in isolation? And Facebook would be an example of that. You know, so that's something that I'm actually okay with, and it probably didn't enter your list, to be fair. So, list of all the things you can no longer do anymore. Categorize it. Can I just not do it anymore? Can I do it, but do I need to change it? And is it actually okay because I've got a replacement for it? Okay, so a replacement would be, for example, the movie theaters. I can't go to the movie theater anymore, but I've got Lightbox, I've got Google Plus, I've got Disney Plus. So whilst I love the movies, I've actually got a way of doing that. And if you're Ian and Tracy Wilson, you're absolutely fine in that space. So think about those things. Think about what it is that you can't do. My wee niece is going, wait, Mum. Think about what you can't do. Put it into those. Put them into categories, and then ask yourself, what situation are you in? Why are we doing that? So that we can start to understand what it is that we're genuinely missing. You'll find out pretty quickly what are the things you miss. And one of the challenges you have when you're going through the stages of grief is you're like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm just feeling sad. I'm just angry. I don't know why I'm angry. I can't understand what's going on. So your emotions are completely overwhelming any ability for you to logically sit back and work through it. Doing this, creating a list, creating categories, and asking those 3 questions means that you can very quickly identify what it is that you're missing. Once you figure out what you're missing, then you can go through a process of understanding, okay, so I'm really missing X, and that's making me super angry. But I get that I need to do this because if I do this, I'm going to help our country, and we're probably going to get out of it quicker if we do this. And yeah, that makes me feel really sad, and I'm a bit down about it. But actually now I can accept it. So once you know what it is and you identify it, you can actually consciously work through that process. Now, please, this is not a I'm going to fix everything tomorrow solution. And if the stuff that you're going through is really, really challenging, please reach out to me. BeSuite, BeSuite.co.nz. I do have a room where I can go to have private conversations, or I can just book the garage gym. So what is your daughter saying? She's hello. She has something really important to tell us. Anyway, so today's lesson is about the 5 stages of grief. Thank you, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, for popularizing that from 1969. And hello. Oh, you're such a princess. And if you are still really challenged in this space, please come and talk to me. I hope that's helpful. Write a list of all the things that you can't do anymore, categorize it, put it into those 3 questions, and then from there, you will be able to work through that process consciously. And that's a real key component to helping you deal with what's going on right now. Love you heaps. Hope that's helpful. Take care.